what aspect of it attracted you the most, and why did you choose it over, other certification or designation?
So I was one of those students who, so I knew I wanted to do HR kind of like when I was already in my undergrad. And I was kind of aware of the CHRP while I was in my undergrad as well. So like while I was doing it, I was making sure that I was checking off the coursework requirements. So a lot of the coursework requirements for the CHRP designation are courses that like we would take in school. So since I kind of was doing those and I had them in mind when I was doing them, it was just kind of like I'm in progress doing the CHRP, and I decided to just kind of go all the way. So something that I was keeping in mind while I was in school already, rather than deciding to doing it after. But again, like my main mentality when I decided to get the CHRP was just kind of, I wanted that, I guess, like designation to show that it was something that I was dedicated to as like a marketing tool for myself in the job market.
Right. How about you, Lily?
So for me, I fell in love with HR in my first year when I took the first course at Ryerson. But I was always questioning what I wanted to do in HR. And so when I was already working at Magellan Aerospace, and my boss brought it up, why don't you do your CHRP? And because she was on the board of directors. So I had that kind of inside of what is really needed, why it's so important. And, thinking about it, I'm like, I just want to leave as many doors open as possible when I'm starting my career. So people can't be like, well, you don't have this, you don't have that. At the end of the day, as a recruiter myself in the past, if I had to choose between two people and one of them had their CHRP and everything else was the same, I would pick that person, given that they've taken the extra step to get their CHRP. So that's why I would think it's really important for people to really think about whether or not they want to get it and why it's important to them, instead of just doing it just because other people are saying, go and get it.
Understood. So the next question, kind of along the same line, is getting more technical, because when I first started thinking about getting the CHRP, I was I went on the website and then I checked, okay, what is the requirements, what is kind of the career trajectory, and what are the courses. I was kind of confused. I was like, okay, so you need to do the CKE1, and then but you can't do it until you have all the course requirements and stuff. So I was thinking, if I had that question, a lot of other people probably have that as well. So I'm just gonna ask you guys to kind of explain in plain words a little bit about, what's the process of getting the designation and how did you prepare for it? And then, just like Allison said, any courses or certificate programs that helped you to achieve that.
So for my preparation, again, because I took it, I think 5 years ago, kind of compared to you guys, I didn't have to do the law exam, and I didn't have to do the professional program and the final performance exam. However, looking back, because I always wanted to keep that door open, I made sure I did the required courses during my undergrad and get at least 70% in all my classes. And then in terms of when I finally did it, I was already 2 years out of school. So the exam, it's very different compared to real life when you're working. So when you're working, you're not going to be actually going by the book. There's always different situations. Not everything's black and white, everything's gray. I think that was the hardest part for me, because I had to keep thinking, okay, what does the textbook say? In real life, I would do something entirely different, but I have to step back and really think, okay, the textbook, what does it say? So for me, I studied differently. I know some people take notes, but that doesn't really work for me. I actually spent 4 months reading every single textbook I had again, because I kept them all from an undergraduate degree, and I read them at least twice, back to back.
Commitment.
And I also just read a lot of definitions. The textbooks I had from undergraduate degree, they had quizzes that you can do online, so that really helped me as well. And then I also just bought a book that would help me with the study guide and to tell me, okay, I'm weak in, industrial relations in that area, so maybe I have to study that a little bit more. So I really focused on studying the textbooks, the definitions, and doing it by myself, because I don't really study well with other people. I get distracted. Just taking, some similar quizzes and exams to help prepare myself for the exam.
Okay, great.
That's
How about
actually,
you, Allison?
Yeah, that's actually really interesting because I was someone who did kind of the CKE1 and the law exam right out of school. So I was still kind of in that student mindset. So I can see why it's like it would be a difference in studying for those exams, because like Lily, I did realize once I started working that everything you learn in school, like while it can be kind of helpful as a foundational knowledge, you do kind of do things based on the situation that you're in rather than like what you read in a textbook. But like, as I mentioned, when I took the CKE1 and the law exam, I was straight out of school. I had just finished at George Brown. So when I was preparing for those exams, I had resources from school. George Brown had offered me, or had offered our class, prep exams that I think were offered by the CHRPA to the school. So they let us do practice exams, which was really helpful for the format. I'm not sure if the format had changed too much from when Lily did it, because I think I had a colleague who kind of did her CHRP around the same time that Lily did it. I believe it was like, I think it was a little bit different back then, but especially since the CKE1 and the CKE2 did split.
Right.
But what I did to prepare for the current state of the exams was I did practice exams wherever possible. So I had them from school. I'm not sure if Robin offers that to their students, but I think that if you got in touch with the CHRPA, it's something that they could help you with. I also bought a prep book for the CKE1. I don't quite remember which brand it was. I want to say Thomson Reuters, but I'm not 100%. But that was really helpful just because it was kind of like, it was like a comprehensive explanation of all the different sections. So the CKE1 covers all the different functions of HR, and then you have to pass each section in order to pass the total exam. So it's like if you fail one of them, you fail the exam. So it was really good because it just kind of like broke down all of those different sections for us, and then also had practice questions. I think the practice questions were key for me. Like, yeah, note taking is great, but like Lily, it's not like totally helpful. The best part was actually just like practicing the questions. So for the exams, it really is just like a matter of studying. If you're doing it right out of school, obviously, I think it might be a little bit easier just because you're coming out of school, you're coming out of that student mindset, and you have those notes as well. So keep your notes if you plan to do the CKE1 and the law exam. Yeah, in addition to the exam requirements, you also have to be a member of the CHRPA. So to actually like do the exams, you have to be a member, you have to have done all the coursework. I don't know the list off the top of my head, but you can find it on the website, like all the courses, and they are all offered at U of T. So you guys are covered. But yeah, you have to be a member of the CHRPA. They do have a student rate, I believe, that is cheaper than if you were to get a membership out of school. So I think if you join as a student, it's a lot cheaper. And then after you pass the exams, you've done the coursework, and then you've been a member, you have to do this job ready program, which is like this really short, just online module. It takes about an hour. It's just about professionalism and like what the CHRP expects of its members in terms of like conduct. So hopefully that was clear, but that was kind of just like all the prep you really need to do to get it.
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize, like, don't be that person that says, oh yeah, I got this, like I don't need to prepare, because like doing the questions, like the practice questions are so crucial. And because the questions are way different what you would get in university.
Yeah.
I had a friend that said, oh, I don't need to like study. And I'm like, no, you need to study. She did the exam and she failed. And I'm like, well, I told you so. You should have prepared. So she had to do it a second time. So don't be that person.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe they were about 3 hours each in length. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lily, but I'm pretty sure that's what I remember about.
The CKE2 is a little bit longer. I think there's 75 extra questions. So I think there's a lunch break that people get to do the CKE2. And that's why I tell people like, just you might as well just do the CKE2 before not doing the CKE1, because you don't have to do 2 exams. Just you're doing one, it's just a heavier workload if possible.
That is a good point, because when I eventually want to do my CHRL, I do have to take another exam. That is another thing to consider, actually.
Okay. Do you guys mind explaining a little bit on the CKE and the CKE1 and CKE2 and how it relates to CHRP and CHRL?
Yeah, so the CKE1, you can only get the CHRP. So you don't need the 3-year work experience and the employment law and all that. And it's 75 less questions, I believe, than the CKE2. So the CKE2 allows you to get the CHRP and then eventually work your way to get the CHRL. And it's like 250 questions. And so it's a much longer exam. So I know that deters a lot of people, like, well, I'd rather just, do the faster, the easier exam. It's the same exam, but 75 more questions. So if you've already studied for it, you might as well just like go
right.
and do the CKE2.